8:03. Welcome, everybody. Before we get started, the Metro Vancouver Transit Police and the Police Board respects the Indigenous nations within Metro Vancouver and acknowledges all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people for their continued resilient, sustainable stewardship and as active members of the community for generations to come. We recognize that working within and managing the region's transportation system do have a role to play in supporting reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. All right, let's get started. So first thing on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull anything from consent?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to pull 1.1D, which is the Q1 potential option.
Okay. Anybody else pulling? No? All right, can I get a motion to accept consent less D? Murray? Second on call. All right, let's talk about C, Bill.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I thought it was just a good opportunity to provide the entire group here just a quick additional insight on the Q1 financial operating status that was reviewed by the Finance Committee back on April 30th. In the report, some page in our deck and in the package starting on page 17. As of March 31st, 2025, the police services expenditures were $12.7 million compared to year-to-date budget of $14.2 million. It is a favorable variance from budget of about $1.5 million. 80% of that variance is due to the vacant positions that was budgeted for and offset by some of the additional overtime, and then the other difference was for the timing difference. The chief has confirmed that the service delivery is maintained and her team is focusing on continuing to fill the vacant positions. That concludes my additional insight.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate that. Can I get a motion to accept consent D, please? Great. Thanks, Marie and Bill. All right. Public delegations. Taryn, do we have any public delegations today? All right. So next item up is a presentation from the MVTP communications team. I'll let you pull that up. Great.
I'll be handing it off to members of my team. We've got 3 slides on social media, 3 on media relations, and then 3 on internal communications. But I was just going to start off with this slide just to talk about the composition of the team. So we're a little bit interesting in that we combine a number of portfolios underneath strategic services. You have communications, which represents about 50%, so that's media relations, internal communications, social media. And then we also have policy and planning, policy success, and as well as events, of course, using all the policies and standard operating procedures that come to board meetings. All the generation of all the reports that go to the transit board, the KSML board, as well as the police board. The strategic plan, as well as falls underneath itself, as well as the coordination of any kind of a major events. So we support all the charitable events we go to, employee events, and community events. And then the section coordinator is the position we're currently looking to fill. That would support us largely in terms of the administration of the KSML board, support us a lot of the board work that we're doing, as well as work with us on accommodations boards, support me in terms of strategic planning, but they also support practical analytics, so a variety of different portfolios. But just with that composition of that team, it's a really, really dynamic, really good team that comes together. Obviously, the priorities on a day-to-day basis can shift significantly based on whether or not there's a media event, if there's an upcoming board meeting, if there's a community engagement event. Everyone kind of comes together and pulls together to kind of do that on a weekly basis. So with that, I will turn it over to Linda, who leads our social media.
Hi, Linda. I'm the Senior Communications Advisor for external messaging. I have a very diverse and wide portfolio that includes things like responding to emails from the public when they have a request, a complaint, or feedback of any kind. I'm responsible for updating our website, and then things like making sure our flags are at half-mast when they're supposed to be. But by far, the biggest part of my portfolio is related to social media. As Transit Police, as the corporate brand, we are on 9 different platforms that we use to communicate with the public. And in addition to that, we have 41 branded accounts. Every unit, almost every unit, our community engagement team and then other officers as well have accounts. And that is to be able to communicate and engage with demographics that as a Transit Police logo brand, nameless brand, I can't do. For example, Shiraz as the Indigenous liaison can communicate with people online that fit the Indigenous demographic in a way that I can. That's why we have so many. And there is a lot of paperwork that guides how we conduct ourselves online and how we post, and there is a policy, that is a standard operating procedure, and there are guidelines. Thank you, Beth, for creating all of those. And in addition, there are other policies, such as the AI policy, that may affect what we do on social media. So instead of reaching out to all of our branded accounts with a pile of paperwork and expecting them to know it, what I do is I make sure I know all of that inside and out. Then they sit down with me, and for about an hour, we go through training, and there's some select slides from our training here, with examples of the policies in action and perhaps some missteps to avoid and things like that. And when it comes to social media, by far the platform where we get the biggest sort of bang for our buck, so to speak, is Reddit. And it's a very uncommon platform for brands. It really needs a very, very different approach from any other social media. And because we have so much success in it, I'm lucky enough to have been invited to speak and to teach other police agencies and first responders how to engage on Reddit. Most notably, I was at the SMILE conference last year, and I got to speak to an international audience of police communicators. What we do on Reddit is we are able to, there's 2 examples at the top there, engage with people who may have experienced or witnessed an incident on the transit system that maybe aren't comfortable talking to police, have not realized that transit police exist. I'm able to engage with them in front of a large audience, and we get to have that interaction with these vulnerable people, but also have a wide audience in that interaction. And we also generate a fair amount of media attention through our Reddit account, sometimes sort of indirectly, but sometimes very much directly. For example, last year, in response to bus lane cheaters, so to speak, we engaged with Reddit, and without directly engaging media, we were able to generate over 40 media stories, and in fact, we got so much media attention and so many requests for interviews that despite having 2 media relations officers responding, we weren't able to give all the interviews. It's been very good for us. And speaking of media,
I'm sure everybody knows who I am at this point, but I'll introduce myself. I'm Constable Amanda Key, and I'm the Media Relations Officer for Transit Police. For the last 3 years or so, it's been just me. It's been a singular role, but luckily enough, we've been able to hire a secondary media relations officer, Sergeant Dustin Cash, who is able to assist with some of these media inquiries. It's a lot of work for one person, so I'm really happy to have a second officer be able to present to the media. I'm going to give you just a very brief overview of what media relations, what my role is about. I have 3 minutes, so I could talk forever, but 3 minutes it is. So my role, I work closely with the communications team, and my role specifically is public facing. So I'm responsible for crafting and sourcing media releases as well, and I'm sure you've seen quite a few of them. And then from that, I would be responsible for doing media interviews, that includes radio interviews, live radio interviews, in-camera interviews, and recently, for example, I got to go to CBC, something up to downtown and do a live radio interview there. The first time I've done that was really fun. What makes us a little bit more unique in terms of media relations compared to other departments is we have to work very closely with our jurisdictional police partners because our service area is so vast, over 1,800 square kilometers. There are times when a jurisdictional police service will be the first call, and we have to sort of figure out as a department who is going to be the lead on that file, and it's my responsibility to sort of sort that out and figure out what I can say until we just determine who's in charge of the file. If it's us, then I'm able to speak freely on what the file is about, but if not, then I will liaise with the jurisdiction officer to determine if they're going to be in charge of that file, and then I'll hand over all the information that I have with them. I have this clicker, sorry. Generally speaking, media releases fall under 4 categories. There's always exceptions to the rule, but generally what we do, if we have a significant incident, that will be a release. So if something's happening in real time, that is a huge police response that is affecting not only the transit system, but also transit police, if we're involved, we can do a release on that. The second is suspect for ID. So we have our investigators that complete investigations, and they've reached the end of their investigative avenues, and they're asking the public for help. That is something we would put a release out on, and also for witnesses, not just suspects, but if we're looking for more witnesses for an investigation to help with the court case, then we would put out a release for ID. Also public warnings, if we have, say, a prolific offender that is affecting the transit system and we want to warn the public, we'll put out a public warning and let them know that this person has either been released or they're a chronic offender, just to be safe. And the fourth would be a result of a project. So if our GIU, so our General Investigations Unit, or our CST do a project that is noteworthy, there's lots of drug thieves, there's gun thieves, even patrol, they'll do what we call JFOs, so they do projects with our jurisdictional police partners. And we want to highlight that the good work that they do, so we'll put out a report of projects immediately. We tend to get a lot of pickups from those types because the general public is often very interested in what we do with police officers and the police work that we do. Another thing that makes us unique is we liaise with TransLink. So the TransLink media team is constantly in contact. We are in contact with them all the time. If an incident happens on the system and there's a system-wide shutdown, we do have to be able to be in contact with them. So we liaise with their media team to ensure that we're releasing the same cohesive message across the enterprise.
We're not moving enough.
That brings us to me. Good morning. I'm Amas Neri. I'm the Senior Advisor in Editorial Communications. And one of the major portions of my portfolio is our online encyclopedia called Coupling. It's our intranet site, and this is where all our important information is, whether it is news, whether it is wellness updates, whether it is bulletins, policies, procedures, whether it is Watch Commander Manual or Patrol Toolkit, you can find it all here. One of the most interesting features that we get most engagement on our internet site is our profile feature that we do every month, where we profile an employee. This is spread across sworn officers and civilians. So from time to time, we reach out to different employees, whether they're in different sections, whether they're in different units, different squads, so that as an organization, we understand how all the different sections function. And this also builds a lot of engagement within the employees themselves because it's a very talked about feature. On the screen, you can see that's like right there, and the profile is right back. This is a bit of an older page. We keep making updates and changes to it from time to time, and it has a very new site kind of a feel. Other than that, we have other channels to communicate with our staff. One of them are the GDC, kind of called the Employee Youth Network. which are across our offices, whether it's the headquarters, whether it's Bridgeport, New West. We even have one at the Washington CCC, and we also have a public safety right at headquarters in our lobby. These screens showcase a lot of content that sometimes comes from the staff themselves, whether it's officers out on patrol, whether it's our community engagement team doing events, and also important information that comes through from our wellness team, our HR, our information management section. So all the important information that needs to be shared and can be shared in bite-sized pieces are shared on our screen. Other than that, we also have a newsletter called The Informer. The biggest draw for The Informer is it highlights monthly achievements of our staff, and this also includes both civil and civilian. So this is something you do not see on Coupling, and so this is the biggest draw to our newsletter. We also highlight all the upcoming equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives that are ongoing or upcoming in our newsletter. And everyone are all staff emails so that we can reach out to staff with key information, key messages, whether it's an event organized by our community engagement team, like we have the upcoming National Indigenous Day event being organized by our Indigenous liaison officers, or whether it's important information about our prostate cancer fundraiser, and if any events are coming up, whether you're visiting us, also policies, procedures, all the key messages go out all staff through all staff emails. So we make sure that we're able to reach out to our staff through various channels so that they don't miss out on any key information. And the third part of my portfolio is liaising with handling, like external comms, like media. Internal communications also always closely working with handling, whether it comes to enterprise-wide bulletins, whether it comes to fundraisers being organized by different operating companies, whether it comes to sharing our fundraisers with them, and also sharing joint accomplishments and files that our officers work with in conjunction with whether they're SPAs or bus operators. So anything that has an impact on the enterprise as a whole and involves transit police, I do liaising with them for ensuring that that information comes to our staff as well, and also sharing our information with them when it is of interest to other operating companies. From time to time, we also work to feature our staff for various profile feature stories, which they share internally and externally, and sometimes coordinating with our staff and falls into my bucket.
I'll just wrap that up and say we're on top of all that. Obviously, there's also several projects and initiatives. So at the moment, all my rebranding strategy is something the team's focusing time on. We're just discussing some of the assets we're developing for the new recruiting campaign. So a lot of us have been going to that in the last couple of weeks and finding out photos and videos of the stuff that will be coming into that campaign. I'll for the presentation, but Dal here, she's the only supposed to get the Informer. So a lot of that is chasing down content across the organization and kind of finding those hidden photos that might not have come to us that employees like, oh yeah, it's actually, showcasing the good work that I did, and just sharing that with the overall information. That's that, and see if anyone has any questions.
Questions from the board? Sure, go ahead, Tom.
Great presentation, thank you. You mentioned about the 41 branded accounts, and I'm just interested to see how that compares to some of the other agencies, and how do you manage 41 branded accounts?
She's amazing.
I know that, but for sure.
I'm not sure how that compares to other agencies. I think it's probably comparable to DPD in terms of overall size, not a rate per officer. It's very big, but I think it's important because we have such a huge service area with so many different demographics that every one of our accounts just hits a different demographic. Like we recently got our youth services unit up and running, so now they are on Instagram and they're really engaging with youth and other youth agencies, and
And there's different individuals that oversee particular accounts, with the ultimate oversight falling to the section. And maybe this is just a good segue for recognition for the team. Obviously, subject matter experts in respective areas, and, you can't say enough about what communications does, both externally and internally, for organizations. So just, recognition for that work, the importance of it, and a thank you to the team.
Any other questions? Sure, Carla.
I do. Thank you. This is I'm really impressed, and what a great presentation just to learn about the various aspects and how much work has to go in. I'm glad. I wondered about how we liaise with Translate, right? So I imagine that's a big part of your portfolio to be challenging. And I'm really interested in that and the sort of the various accounts. Reddit, I should have assumed that, but it just surprised me when you said this was this big community. And I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about, there can be some challenging communities within Reddit, and I just wonder how that just seems like it's such a wide landscape. And it's good. I can see where the good work can be done, and the communications get to the wider population. But imagine it's just vast. So I just if you could say a little bit more about how that's part of your.
It is. Most of my time is spent in the Vancouver subreddit, which is about 500,000 people subscribe, but of course you don't need to be subscribed or even have an account in order to interact with Reddit. And Vancouver, the moderators that are in charge that own that subreddit, they have been wonderful to work with. They've been very supportive, which is huge, because they could have blocked me. They could have just been like, nope, and blocked me outright. But they've been great. In fact, I've been able to work with them. So now every time there is a post-medical emergency on SkyTrade, they immediately pin a comment to the very top of that post that offers mental health support for people who may be in crisis, because it may trigger them if they're in a bad place. And then they also provide victim services information from people who may have witnessed it and may not be able to process it. So that the Vancouver subreddit's been great. But there's other subreddits that just kind of let me do my thing. So UBC is a big one. There's a lot of young women in there who take the bus to school, and unfortunately they do experience unwanted touching. And they often don't feel comfortable calling, or they don't know that they can, or perhaps they don't know that what happened to them is a crime. So it's a lot of time that I go in there and I really try and make them feel comfortable, and everybody watching that interaction feel comfortable. If you're not sure if that was inappropriate touching or not, well, it probably was. And then I just float around each municipality has a subreddit. I look for keywords. Often, Reddit now knows that we're there, so I get called. So I got called into the Burnaby subreddit this morning. I haven't had a chance to look to see what's going on there, but they tag me. There's some kind of going on. So.
Wow, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Sure. Right.
Thank you. Good presentation. The thing that surprised me is the fact that Reddit is the dominant platform. Because I'm fairly regularly on social media, but I'm never on Reddit, and that's why it surprises me. So I'm not saying it's wrong, but I certainly perked my attention. Let me put it to you that way.
I think each social media platform evolves over time. I think we were much more active and focused on Twitter or X in the past. I continue to be very active there, but a lot of the communities that we need to reach have either don't have established accounts on Twitter any longer, we have disengaged for various reasons. There's a proliferation of other sites that they can interact with their communities, and so we need to be on each of them in order to reach those specific groups. So it's not all about Twitter any longer, there's a variety of other channels.
Well, the thing about it is, I guess the ones that I'm, typically familiar with, are things like Instagram and X, and Facebook, sort of the older ones, I guess. But Reddit's really interesting that it's become so popular. But thank you. good presentation.
Any other questions?
I
Sure.
just have to know, are you on Blue Sky? Is that,
Yes.
yeah, okay. Are there many, how big is the community? Is it, I know it's growing, but
It's growing.
Yeah. Interesting.
We don't quite have the engagement,
Yeah.
but I'm hopeful.
yeah, it is an interesting, like, trying to figure out who the demographic is, isn't it? Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, thanks.
Any other questions? Great, all right. Thanks very much for your presentation. It was really helpful. Thank you. All right, what do we got next? Chief Officer report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And we're just getting the slide deck up for the Chief Officer report. We'll focus on our 3 pillars for Transit Police: cross-regional policing, engaged community partners, and modern policing culture. Next slide, please.
It's abandoned.
So, really exciting time in the history of Transit Police. Coming up on December 4th, it will be the 20th year anniversary of Transit Police. So you can just imagine over the years from the inception of this organization, some people have been here from the onset, others have joined at different points. Nonetheless, everyone here and not here today who has been involved in the agency have contributed to this day, this 20th year anniversary. You'll see depicted patches that have been created for our sworn officers to commemorate for our community safety officers and our transit police officers. We're also creating pins for our civilian professionals that they will be able to wear during that time frame as well. A committee was engaged in order to prepare for the event, so thank you to those involved. But it didn't stop there. We're also deeply engaged with our retired members who know that history and background, and in fact, we're having a gathering this weekend with over 25 actually retired members attending to help us shape this celebration and what it will look like. So we look forward to sharing more about this celebration and significant milestone with the board and with the community. Next slide, please. Now I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Officer Randy Fincham, who will give an operations update for Transit Police.
Good morning. Thanks for having me this morning. So a few things to highlight this reporting period. So in April of this year, we experienced another large-scale event at BC Place Stadium. So this is the AC/DC concert in combination with the CONCACAF Champions Cup with Miami. So Inter Miami drew a fairly large crowd in Vancouver. Each of these events brought in the neighborhood of 50,000 people into the transit system. Concerts in this game's a significant local crowd, but AC/DC brought attendees in from all over the Lower Mainland and from actually outside the country as well. So a fairly big event. We continue to use these events as test cases for FIFA 2026. So watching how crowds interact, how crowds use the transportation system, and then how we can work with our transit partners and our policing partners to respond to these large-scale events with a focus on public safety, getting people there and home safely as well. As well as this period, deploying our resources into Surrey. So the Vaisakhi Day Festival in Surrey drew a crowd of 500,000 people. This is one of the largest Vaisakhi parades actually occurring in Canada now, and a significant impact on resources in the city of Surrey, specific to this one. So fortunately, with our relationship with Surrey, they reached out to Transit Police to support their policing efforts. We provided police resources into Surrey to assist with traffic control, as well as various other policing functions to ensure the safety of attendees to that particular event. For our patrol section, so we had as well an expansion into our bike patrol program. So we had 4 officers work with the Vancouver Police Department to expand our capabilities with our bike officers. So these are officers deployed on bicycles who can deploy into communities, under guideways, into bus loops, and work on some unique challenges that we find across the system. We're looking forward to seeing that program expand. And with the launch of summer, now that we're getting into better weather in May, and we see crowds gather on beaches and take transit for special events, as we approach Canada Day and Celebration of Light, we're looking forward to having the bikes out there to support those efforts. As well, looking into the spring with an increase in tourists coming into Vancouver with cruise ships coming into the Port of Vancouver, as well as just general tourist season picking up in Vancouver. We're looking forward to using, again, specialized funding through site funding, new funding called C-STEP, which actually we're having a press conference this morning with the province on, and utilizing unique funding to increase our presence and visibility on the system. We know that we have a fairly large or very large transportation region that we police, and we look forward to applying more resources across the system to have an increased presence, looking at public safety as a priority of ours. For our General Investigation Unit, so we're starting in February through April of this year. Our investigators, so Inspector Steve Mean to my right, his investigative team, were focusing on a series of 7 robberies across the system. These were youth preying on other youth in the system, and that investigation is now concluded. Some investigative steps to follow up, but we're happy to report back that those youth will be held accountable for their actions, and there's other offenses that we're looking at gathering potential other victims to these offenses and seeing how broad their impact was on the system. This is another example of why we brought in the Youth Liaison Officer position to focus on youth-related crime. So we know there has been an uptick in incidents on the system involving youth, and we look forward to applying that resource as well as others to combating various youth crimes on the system. Project Fusion that you'll actually see in the news today. So this began in 2024. Again, this is Inspector Meaden's team focusing on drug activity in the Burnaby area, in and around our SkyTrain stations. So this is a combination of observations from plainclothes officers, uniform officers, and specifically focusing on one individual who was having a high impact on drug trafficking in that area, as well as weapons offenses. That is another program that was funded through SITE, so with Steve's team applying to the province for specialized funding to tackle this particular crime. Long-term investigation with policing partners, Vancouver Police Department, Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit, and using some very industrious police techniques to hold this individual accountable. A number of charges out of that particular incident. So this individual was held in custody after a recommendation to Crown Counsel, currently being held for 7 counts of trafficking controlled substance, firearms offenses, and we're looking forward to following this individual through the court system. And with all these cases, this individual is held in custody, but we'll look at banning them from the system to prevent further victimization of our ridership. Our operations support section, so Inspector Bruce Hamilton, 2 over to my left. Bruce's team was out with Visaki in Vancouver, which is probably the 2nd largest festival, certainly the province of British Columbia, one of the largest. So we've provided CET members into that parade as well, representing Metro Vancouver Transit Police and supporting police efforts in that area. Our Indigenous Liaison Officer, again, is in community, reaching out to community. One of the recent events was the Breaking Bread Building Bonds, Living Action and Truth and Reconciliation event, and this is at Fraser View Banquet Hall. So our Indigenous Liaison Officers out there engaging with community and other members of our team as well, in an effort to expand our reconciliation efforts within Transit Police. And our Mental Health Liaison Officer position is now expanded to have 2 officers. So traditionally we had 1 officer engaging with persons in crisis alongside of all the rest of our staff, as well with our TransLink partners having a cohesive response to what's happening in community. And with the expansion into a 2nd Mental Health Liaison Officer, we now have the ability to provide 7-day coverage with mental health supports in community and referring individuals in crisis to various health authorities across the region, which has been fantastic to see that expansion. I mentioned our Youth Liaison position. So Rylan Armstrong is now joining that position. He was highlighted recently, doing a great job connecting with youth. Our K-9 unit recently co-hosted an event with the Delta Police Department. So the Canadian Police K-9 Association Detection Dog Seminar. So this gathered professional police handlers from across the province to expand our capabilities, focusing on explosive detection and training, as well as we had members attend the Northwest Police Dog Detection Conference recently, where we obtain our accreditations for the work that we do, and have continued to expand that program. Our CSO program, so we recently had a swearing in where we welcomed in 10 new CSOs, expanding the program with our ultimate goal to maintain 24 CSOs across the system. CSOs continue to perform and do a fantastic job supporting police efforts, proactive enforcement across the system. They do great work. And again, their focus is on high visibility patrols and presence across the system, whether that's bus loops, buses, SkyTrain, Canada Line, CBus, all across the system. Our targeted mobile enforcement team Recently, we had Constable Harry Dillon. He has a commercial vehicle inspection background, so he launched a partnership with commercial vehicle inspectors from across the region. This included Coquitlam bylaw officers, Surrey bylaw officers, RCMP, Vancouver police officers, and they focused their efforts in around the Scott Road Station area, feeder to the Petula Bridge, and focusing on vehicles that would be, large-sized commercial vehicles that would be transitioning over that bridge, and looking at various safety violations in the vehicles. And there were a significant number of vehicles that were taken off the system as a result of that. So 95 various inspections on vehicles, and 39 of those vehicles were actually taken out of service, which actually prevented potential to motorists across the system. And I'll turn it back over to the chief.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll now turn it over to Deputy Bryce Graham, who will give an update on the Administrative Service Division.
Good morning. I'll just start and highlight some of the work that's being done by a recruiting team, which is led by Inspector Troy Heidens, who's over to my right. So in Q2, we've been attending numerous community events, just to highlight things like the Security, Police and Fire Expo that was held in Surrey. We've also been holding information sessions within our house to further both our CSO program as well as the police recruits. In May, we sent 4 police recruits to the Justice Institute of BC to continue along with their growth. Just to highlight some training, the training units arranged to host, based on the International Association of Chiefs of Police Frontline Leadership Training Course, which we held out at the Regional Training Municipal Center. And Transit Police will be looking to do that in the fall, and we'll be offering it out to our jurisdictional partners as well. For people and culture, and through work we've done in partnership with TransLink, is we partner with a global leader in building inclusive workplaces. And what this does is gives our employees resources to research digital learning tools as well as webinars based on very research-based stuff, everything from frontline leadership to motivation to inclusive workplaces to intergenerational workforces. So a great tool that we're able to provide to our employees. We're also able to host a one-day virtual health and wellness seminar that was hosted with partnership with our TransLink, which focused on movement and mobility, stress management, and mental health awareness. And I'll pass it back to Chief.
Thank you. That concludes our update, and we'll open next slide, please, for any questions. Questions? Sure.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Just a quick question. You mentioned about the 24 CSOs. So maybe you can just provide me with some clarity. On a typical shift, how many CSOs will be working?
You want to talk? I'm going to turn it over to Inspector Jeff Connor. So Jeff deploys our operational resources. Thank you. And Jeff will comment on that.
Yes, with the 24, ideally we have 24 CSOs at all times. We have 4 different patrol shifts, and we assign 6 of them to each of the shifts. So, and then we have 2 deployment areas, one in Bridgeport and one over here at HQ for East and West divisions. So typically, if we're fully staffed, if everybody's on shift at the same time, we have 3 CSOs in the West Division and 3 CSOs in the East Division. They do have the flexibility to join together if there is a community event or something. They'll all get together, go to the one location. So I would say typically between 3 and 6 CSOs on shift at any one time.
Great. Thank you.
Great.
Just a follow-up to Bill's question. So there were, as a class graduating of 10 CSOs recently, and where does that place us in terms of total number of CSOs right now as part of the department?
Inspector Bruce Hamilton.
We actually have another one graduating in September. That'll be class 4. At that point, we'll have 22 CSOs.
So
they're going to be going out on the road on their block 2, so there'll be a resource to us in, I think, 3 weeks' time. So they'll be out doing their field training. Currently, they're sitting at 12.
Is that right? So the CSOs are transitioning off to other careers. Is that what's happening?
Our recruiting section is using them to regular members.
Right. Well, that's good to hear. But at the same time, the transitioning process seems to be more accelerated than I would have expected. But that's good as well. So it tells me that the recruiting process for the CSOs is effective. So good job.
Yeah, and it's definitely That's a reflection of the quality of the CSOs we're hiring, the training they're receiving, the character of the CSOs that we're having on staff, transiting to policing within Transit Police, which is fantastic. Some we've seen go to other police forces as well, so definitely a testament to the training team for what they're doing. Bruce's team on the CSO side as far as training, coordinating that team, and then Jeff on the deployment side. So it's a whole agency effort in supporting the CSO program.
Sort of a supplemental question, and sort of reading here and there that other departments are looking at introducing a CSO program within their structure. And are any of those coming to fruition, or is there? I guess the concern I have is that we become kind of the training ground for sworn members by having the only CSO program around. I guess Vancouver has one, but I'm not sure theirs is exactly the same as ours. But do you have any comments in that regard?
I can answer, Chief. So the CSO program 2023, developed in 2023, looking at other programs across the region, so what was existing as far as special municipal constables. Beth, to my right, heavily looking at policy with other agencies. Oscar on the legal side, looking at what existed and how we could incorporate that into our jurisdiction in far as our standards go. There are other agencies that definitely see the value in the program. We have a proving ground for these individuals coming on board, transitioning to regular police officers, going to the Justice Institute of British Columbia, where they're performing very well based on experience, recruiting, screening standards, and so forth. Yes, there are other agencies now looking at very similar programs and expanding those programs within their agencies, which is going to add to, and I'm sure the Chief's going to comment on later, is the challenge in the Lower Mainland with everybody feeding into police agencies at the same time. So a bit of a need for police officers across the region and a need for community safety officers across the region as well.
No, it's good. I mean, from my perspective, it kind of is, I guess, good reinforcement that we made the right moves in the context of introducing a CSO program. But in some respects, the rapidity of the turnover is concerning, but maybe in a good regard.
Yes, and just a reminder, we're in a 3-year trial for the CSO program, working very closely with government and the union to look at expanding that program, looking at assessing the return on investment for that program as well within the agency. So a lot of work being done to look potentially expanding that program, but it's been very, very successful.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Chief's report? Great. All right. Thanks. All right. On to other business. Report from the finance chair.
Great. Thank you. I just want to let everyone know again that the board members of the finance committee, Mary Dinwinder and George Mandan, and now ex-officio is Martin Larson and myself. I mentioned earlier about Q1 financials, so I won't go over that. The April 30th finance committee did the standard items, which is review the 2025 audit plan and the updated audit work that's required internally and externally. Some regular standing actions that I talked about with status update, nothing further to report on that. And of course, the other item that the finance committee focuses on is the overtime, and Deputy Chief Graham and Chief Mayor provide us with an update on the overtime and the trends and the analysis, and also the challenges of recruiting and hiring.
Great. Questions for Bill? All right, over to report from Governance and Community Engagement. Director Madden is not here today, so Murray, are you a little overview?
So the Governance and Community Engagement Committee met on May 28th and went over the sort of normal agenda items in the regular meeting. There's minutes in the agenda package, but let me just see if I can touch on some of the ones that are more peculiar to this meeting. There was a report regarding the Cavro process relating to the appointment process for boards, which was interesting. Some comments made at the committee, and the committee had requested that the summary be provided to this board meeting, so that's available in the agenda package as well. Board training was discussed. It was the Watson trainings, I think, attended by 4 board members, and also some of the senior leadership team from Metro Vancouver Transit Police. So it's still, that's still being undertaken, so I would encourage other board members to take that board training, because I found it, when I took it, it was an effective series of lessons that were provided that, I guess, expanded my perspectives on the responsibilities of board members. Talked about community engagement, including the Chiefs Community Council and other venues that are available for board members to attend as part of the board in support of the Transit Fleet Service. Marnie, you and I attended last week the legal graduation in Surrey, which I found encouraging because there were so many kids involved in that. I think there were 43 that received diplomas that night, or certificates of completion for the year, and there were several that didn't attend that could have added to that number. So it was encouraging to see this, just the enthusiasm and the, I guess, just the camaraderie that existed amongst the kids that were part of the process, along with the constables like Kurt Rattray and Constable Hamiki, they're both, very engaged, along with Michelle. So I was impressed with just the enthusiasm and the positivity of that. The committee discussed terms of reference. The committee name was changed a while back and approved by the board to the Governance and Community Engagement Committee, and so we reviewed the terms of reference and have added some clause to the terms of reference to reflect the community engagement component of the committee. But they're relatively, I would say that they were more obvious than not in relation to the types of things that we added to the terms of reference. That's also available for the committee to review in the agenda package. And then we had a brief discussion on tariffs and procurement, and the committee had recommended that the discussion, that a motion be passed that there be a policy developed where procurement would be focused on Canadian-produced products, subject to that procurement not be creating a safety concern for the police service. So I think it's something that TransLink's dealing with as well, Chief Muir, and so it's obviously an ongoing topic of discussion, more broadly based than just TransLink and the Metro Vancouver Transit Fleet. So that's my report for the public meeting. I've got other comments in there.
Sure. Any questions for Murray? Okay, you're still on deck, Murray, for the ad hoc ECOM governance committee that's in place right now.
So just a reminder, thank you. So an ad hoc committee was struck
a year ago?
Fall.
Yeah, a year ago or so, yeah.
And it relates to ECOM having initiated a process of reviewing the financial and governance aspects of ECOM with concerns around I guess they've received many concerns from shareholders regarding the relatively rapid increase in fees over the course of time, as well as concerns around how the governance model works, because the board is quite large and therefore unwieldy. So ECOM had commenced a process last fall and had requested that shareholders provide input to the process, and so as a result of that, this board struck an ad hoc committee that included Director Madden as chair, and me as a member, and Oscar Elliott as a member of an ad hoc committee to dialogue with ECOM and receive input and provide feedback to ECOM regarding their review. But in the process of time, the provincial government called a provincial election, and as a result of that election, and the platform that was put forward by the NDP as part of the election process, the provincial government has now initiated an independent review of ECOM that is looking at much the same aspects of of the operation as the e-com review was looking at. So the e-com review has been put on hold temporarily to allow the independent review by the province to come to fruition. And we understand that independent review should be completed by the end of the summer, so sometime toward the end of August. And but in the meantime, as a result of a meeting we had in November, the ad hoc committee had recommended that the Transit Police Board send a letter to ECOM encouraging them to keep us engaged in both the financial review and the other review, because we are concerned with the ongoing process of fee increases and other changes that have been less than optimal in relation to achieving their service standards. But I am happy to report that the most recent report from ECOM has shown that they have now achieved the targets that they have set in relation to time to return calls. And it appears that the changes that they have made internally are working in the context of delivering on the service levels that they have committed to. In part related to improvements that they've made, but in part related to the fact that call volumes are slightly down now as well. As a result of the motion, the ad hoc committee has moved and carried at a meeting in November, a letter was sent from you, Marnie, to the ECOM board, and a return letter has been provided committing the ECOM process to including the Metro Vancouver Transit Police as an important partner in the dialogue that will go on around completing their review. But at this point in time, because the provincial review is still in process, the ECOM review is in some respects put on hold, except that the financial model that they're developing continues to be developed with a view to providing more solid information to the transit police and our other shareholders regarding what we can expect and what they generally can expect with respect to fee increases over the course of time beyond just the current year to a planning horizon of 5 or 10 years. So we're hopeful that that whole process, both the independent review by the province as well as the ECOM review, bears good fruit, and that we will ultimately be in a position where our budgeting process can be more accurately undertaken with better information from ECOM. So at this point in time, our intention is to continue meeting as an ad hoc committee to ensure that we stay engaged in a process and to continue to provide reports to the board as things evolve.
Right. Great. All right. Thanks, Murray. Questions for Murray? All good? All right. That is it for the agenda. Anything else you want to bring up? Good. Next meeting is September 18th, 2025. We'll call the close at 8.